Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Inhumans Divide and Conquer. And this is going to be the last episode I'm reviewing because I was really bored throughout this episode. There are still tidbits that could evolve into interesting plot points, but they don't really do anything really imaginative throughout the episode, and I just think that this is not really Marvel's best work TV-wise with the Inhumans. Because there's still interesting characters and everything, and there's certain things I want to know about, but it's delivered in such a kind of boring way. It's really not exciting, and just kind of like, okay, why is this happening? Why am I seeing this? Oh, this is this point, so we have to do the cliche. Like, okay, whatever. So, the episode starts out and we see the Declan Research Facility in Santa Barbara in California. And we're like, okay, who are these people and how does this work into it? So we get to see this limo and this guy calls to Dr. Declan. He's like, this might be an Inhuman held in a correctional facility, showing the whole stuff with Black Bolt and Oahu and all that's going on. So then, of course, cut to Black Bolt in prison, and we cut to the prison, and we see this big guy named Sammy from the prison, and is like, here's your lawyer, 5 minutes. Okay. So he's talking to him, and it's not his lawyer. It's Dr. Declan. He's like, all right, I know your case file, what led to your arrest. Listen, help us, and we'll help you. It's like, okay. So, of course, then we see Black Bolt, and he has these flashbacks about talking with his father and being with his brother, and, like, how, like, being a king isn't what you think it is. It requires sacrifice, responsibility, and he's like, young Black Bolt's like, I think it's just boring. And he's like, it's not boring. Maximus, he's the king of Adelan, and he's like of 1,400 people. It's like, okay, so we get kind of an estimate of the size of Adeline. And of course, he's like, listen, when you inherit this crown, you're going to inherit all of the power and like the weight of being a leader. He's like, I honestly don't want that. And of course, Maximus is like, I'd rather, like, why don't you let Maximus be king? He's like, well, he can't do that. He's like, well, what if I'm killed in battle or whatnot? And he's like, nobody's going to die. I promise you that. It's like, that's actually a very good question, because when you've got monarchies like this, that kind of stuff tend to occur when people feel that they're jilted and decide to start assassinating other people. Or the people get angry and decide to overthrow you, a la kind of French Revolution kind of thing. So it's like, okay. But then again, these are superpowered beings who can unleash destructive powers at a whim depending upon what you get, unless you get like a power that really, really sucks. So of course, we see that going on, then we kind of like get back to the jail, and we see this Captain Pena guy like giving a statement, pretty much dodging the press on the whole thing. We see the Luis woman roll up and pretty much pestering him about Black Bolt, wanting to know if he's got powers and all that, and just let me kind of get into it. We get a little bit more information on what the Callisto Aerospace thing is. He's like, isn't that a billionaire who wants to build a hotel on the moon? They want to do a base. Hotel will come later. And it's like, okay. Alright, that's kind of an interesting tidbit. Now, granted, I understand the main focus is, like, the power struggle of Adelan, but, like, you need this kind of stuff to, like, flesh out more of the story. So, of course, it's like, alright, not going to do anything. Screw off. And of course, then they get into with Black Bolt and his like holding room that they got him in, and the captain's like, all right, just put him in Gen Pop, let him get rattled hard enough by the other guests that he'll talk. It's like, okay, you don't want him to speak. And then, of course, they lead him off. We see Medusa doing the kind of typical thing of walking around, seeing people doing stuff, getting money out of ATMs, so she goes up and does the typical thing of, I'm the Queen of Adelan, give me money, I require money, not working, and I'm like, okay, there could have been better ways to do this. It's like, it's, I don't have a problem with the character doing it. It's just the way that it's done. It's like not inventive or different or getting any kind of reaction or showing any kind of thing other about the character. It's just like, oh, we're pretty much being given another update to her situation. We already understand her situation is that she is stranded on Earth with no resources, very limited help, and no understanding of the society around her other than what has been gleaned from a faraway glance. We have already gotten this. It's kind of redundant at this point. So, of course, we then kind of like go to Gorgon, and come to find out, a jarring kind of frickin' change here is we find out that the surfer dudes are armed, and some of them have done tours. And it's like, it's not crazy that these people would have like been in the army and all that stuff. It's just the last time they were talking, they were just being surfer dudes on a beach. And they went from like, okay, we might help you out, to they are fully armed and helping this dude who essentially almost tried to drown himself without really that being his main goal. It's like, you are a great warrior and you didn't understand that you don't have really the true ability to swim. Now granted, there's probably not a lot of water on the moon. I'll go with that. So maybe he really didn't know that he could not swim or swim very well in the ocean, since that was his first experience with the ocean. That needed to be communicated a little better, as well as this transition of them in the woods pretty much preparing an ambush for the Inhumans that are coming. And seeing him talk about that, well, like, I trained these people, they're superior beings and everything. I'm like, well, can you be killed? He's like, all living things can be killed. So, well, then, we'll take them on. And it's like, okay, guys that he barely met and you barely know, and you're getting ready to fight for him. It's like, okay. Again, since there's only 8 episodes, things have to be at an accelerated rate, but, like, that's too damn fast, to be honest with you. So, of course, we then get to Princess Crystal, and she's listening to music, and, of course, Maximus comes in, and pretty much tries to get her to support him for peaceful transition of power, giving her something to pretty much read to the Genetic Council to get them on his side. And, of course, he's like, listen, I don't want to hurt anybody, I don't want to kill anybody, but if that's my only option, that's going to be my only option. So, of course, she pretty much gets around for it, like, do it for your sister, and I'm like, thank you for doing this, because I didn't want to force you to do it. It's like, okay. So, of course, then we get to Maximus kind of like talking with Aaron on Earth through the comm, like, what's your progress on Black Bolt? Don't have an idea where he is. Earth's big, all that stuff. It's like, the only lead we really have at this point is Gorgon, since he's stupid enough to essentially say, come get me and fight. It's like, okay, let's pretty much go for him. I'll send you down some people, and I'm sending Mortis. And Aaron's like, listen, no, he's not a fighter. He's just death. It's like, oh god, he's freaking this trained associate. I was like, okay. He's like, listen, I know you can handle anything. I know you can handle him. You're going to do it. Okay, and then we switch to, of course, Maximus talking to the young man that has the ability to kind of see things, and he's like, listen, do you have any visions about me opening this door? And he's like, I don't know. And of course he touches him, he's like, and this is where we actually get some interesting stuff going on. Like, that's not how my powers work. I don't know how to control him or anything, so I don't know why nothing's happening, because he touches him and nothing happens. He doesn't freak out and have a vision or anything. So I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if nothing bad will happen when you open this door. So, okay. So he's like, alright, unlock it. And then we get our first look at Mortis. And he's like, well, got glowing eyes and everything. He's like, alright, hello. He's like, I promise that you'd be free. And he's like, alright, where's Black Bolt? I know he's not willing enough to surrender. He's like, I'll explain. So, of course, then we get Aaron on a comm. He's like, Locus, we're, going through now. And, of course, we see 5 people, including Mortis being the last one, saying, hey. And he's like, I don't want you to be here, and you guys don't want me to be here. So, now one person's like, well, what were you promised? Freedom. So, Mortis, I kind of like throughout this episode because they give at least a little bit something with the character, but not too much. So then we get to the really weak character, Karnak. This was the weirdest part when we start going through this. He's like walking and he gets to a structure. He's like, oh, hello. And the dude's like, hold up. And he's like, what do you think you're doing here? And he like takes out a knife, pretty much threatening him. And he's like, I don't make mistakes. And he's like, dude behind him. He's like, well, you sure pretty much did. Pulls out a machete on him. He's like, what? And it's just like so crazy what goes on after that whole thing, because it's just like with Karnak, he gets into a position where he finds an illegal pot growing thing led by 3 people and really does nothing for the whole episode. They pretty much argue amongst themselves if they need to kill him or whatnot. Because at first they think he might be with the cops, but like they think, okay, the tattoo's not with cops. And the woman kind of talks to him and gets into his kind of past. He's like, listen, I've usually been the one that people come to talk about stuff because I can see the stuff in the future. We see him trying to like use a table to like bring down the structure, but his sight is not working like it should because he tries to kick the table and it doesn't work. He's like, why the hell are you kicking the table? And the woman's like, well, maybe it's because you said you want to kill him, so yeah. So of course he's having his wounds tended by the woman, and they're like, well, we decided not to, we're still deciding what to do with you. And I was like, well, yeah, I need to get to my family, but maybe it would be better if I just stay here because I wouldn't be useful to my family at the moment. So of course they decide not to kill him and keep him on and help with their pot enterprise that they put on public land illegally. Yeah, they completely just don't know what to do with this character, I think. I mean, they don't really have that much of a thing on Gorgon, but Karnak is just like, we're just going to put him on a cliff, have him bang his head, and somehow just stumble upon a pot farm where he'll stay to heal. I don't know. I mean, it could be interesting, but it's presented in the most uninteresting way possible. And it's like, okay, I mean, they did humanize him a little bit, being like, I'm the one that they usually come to for answers, but like, nothing's done with it, really. So, of course, we get to the jail, we see them kind of like bringing him through the commons, and we see the Sammy dude being like, hey, bring him by my cell, I'll deal with him. He's like, alright, you've already made friends. It's like, okay. So, of course, we see Aaron and co. in the jungle, and this was just weird. You think they're supposed to be highly trained royal guards and killers, and they're just like, kind of, I liked that they were awestruck, but you never really got a sense of, like, deadliness from them, except for, like, Aaron and Mortis. The rest are just, like, at least awestruck. I like having that kind of, like, juxtaposition with them, because these are supposed to be killers, and they're like, oh, plants and everything, and trees, and all this, it's pretty cool. But that's only the first kind of thing that we've got. I mean, we had them coming into Earth, but it's like, okay, why would you send these people? Mortis and Aaron I got, but the rest, there's really like nothing there. And of course, I like going through, and Mortis is like, hey, Flora, why can't you like make a path? And of course, she can control plants and everything, and like pushes them out of the way. Which kind of brings up kind of problem in that if plants are such a rarity on the moon, how did she know that she could control them? I mean, yeah, there's probably some things that she can like do with, but like this is probably the first time she's got the ability to really flex her muscles. Why would you send her? Wouldn't you send someone with a more kind of deadly kind of power or whatnot? It was just kind of like, okay, I like the diversity of power, but it's like you're sending these people to kill the royal family. I mean, yes, depending upon what this person can do with plants, they could be deadly, but we have not been shown that at this point, or alluded to. So, of course, they get their path and they're moving along. We see Medusa in another part of the isle, in the royal estates, doing, this was better. This was a better portion of showcasing Medusa than the ATM. She has figured out that she we've already gotten to this point that she needs resources and everything. So she pretty much sneaks into someone's house, gets clothes, gets money, gets food, kind of like acclimates to what's going on, figuring out how this would work, and there's very minimal dialogue. I really like this scene to showcase who Medusa is without telling us who Medusa is. It's a really kind of strange thing to see them trying to tell us who Medusa is with the ATM scene, and then we see this other scene showing us who she is, and it's far more effective than that previous ATM machine scene. So she's like going through, and she finally finds, oh, a man attacked cops, and she sees like Black Bolt, and is like, alright, she sees the cab magnet, and is like, you know what she's gonna do? She's gonna get a cab. So of course, we're kind of like going through, and we get to Black Bolt, and the guards are like talking to Sammy, like gonna take him out. We see that they were playing chess, and Black Bolt making a move before going out. So of course, well, that's later. This, we first get Black Bolt and Sammy kind of like talking. He's trying to figure out stuff about what's going on with Black Bolt. He's like, well, you experimented on him. He's like, no. And he's like, alright, maybe you woke up in this rock-like crust or whatnot. And he's like, okay, so that's what's going on. People like you keep disappearing all over. Do you have family? Your wife needs, and he's like, yeah, he starts communicating with them with sign and everything, which is really, I really like how that's doing it. He's like, okay. He's like, they're going through, they're figuring out, alright, you got powers. Alright, what's going on? He's like, he touches Sam and then he touches himself. He's like, hey, it's because Hawaii, we help our friends here. He's like, no, it's okay. So we get Aaron and their group, they find where Gorgon is, and we get an okay kind of fight scene. They keep Mortis kind of in the back to protect Locust, and they're just going through their stuff. And the fight begins. We get Gorgon having a pretty good fight scene with Aaron, kind of showing and displaying their kind of like strengths and weaknesses. Gorgon being more kind of a brute force, Aaron being kind of more of a flexible kind of fighter. And I really like their portion of the fights. So we get some of these surfers, we get a crossbow bolt kind of taken out of one dude before he can even do his powers. We get this dude spitting stuff at him. He hits him and he falls. We get the Flora person using that to kind of shake the branches, which doesn't make anybody fall, but they all kind of go down on their lines anyway. And, of course, Gorgon, like, lands a real mighty kick on the Urn, and she, like, calls Mortis in, and he comes out and he lifts up his mask for a giant blast that takes out the shack. And it's like, okay, he is possibly somewhat like a Cyclops character. It's not his eyes, I believe. He's probably a being of energy at this point, and he's got that suit and mask to contain him and his access energy. Now, granted, that's just me speculating at this point, but have at will. So, of course, they're able to escape. They get the one dude who was spit up on, and they kind of escape. So, then we get to Luis kind of like looking up images and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of like trying to figure out stuff. Or Captain Pena kind of like knocks and pretty much says, what are you doing here? She's like, oh, I don't know, just curiosity, pretty much trying to figure out what's going on. Of course, he's like, well, I'm going on my suffer break. If you're still here, your car's getting towed, even if you're inside it. It's like, okay. So, of course, we then get the guards coming into Black Bolt and Sammy. They're doing their game of chess, and they're kind of pissed off because they wanted Sammy to kind of like beat him up. And, of course, they kind of take him out, and they take Black Bolt out. They had been playing chess, so he makes his move, and they go out they just kind of tell him that they're going to get him a little exercise. So, of course, they kind of take him out. Then we get to Maximus, and he's talking to this guy, Tybur, and he wants him to make an edict for him to abolish the caste system. Like, that would make society into pieces. It's like, yeah, this is determine Inhumans' place. Yeah, place our people in the mines to suffer. And it's like, listen, I've got the princess here to show her support, so let's go and do that. So, of course, they bring Crystal in. She's like, where's Lockjaw? He's like, listen, he's heavily sedated, and you think I would let him, a teleporting dog, in here to let you out? No way. So of course he's expecting her to do support for him. So they like take her up, and she's like, okay, let's see what's going to be going on. And of course she doesn't. She's like, he's king of no one, ices up the people's guns and kind of runs. And it's like, okay. And then we see a flashback with Katang kind of talking to Maximus about his transformation. And evidently, his Terran Genesis completely made him human, which I'm like, that's an interesting kind of thing for it to happen. It removed all traces, so that way he could never really be king. And he's like, okay. It like transformed at the deepest level, at the cellular level. It's like, that's interesting that you would go through Terran Genesis to be made completely human. That kind of thing would be interesting to explore, but of course we've got the bigger conflict between Maximus and Black Bolt to go through, so we'll have to see. There would probably, I don't know, that's an interesting avenue to explore since we've been learning about the Inhumans through S.H.I.E.L.D. and here. It's like, wow, a process that usually pretty much turns people into super soldiers and super beings, turn this dude into more of a dude. Just completely changed. That's an interesting thing to like go through. So of course we get back and he's like, see how the royal family runs from responsibility and everything, and it's like, that's not really what they're doing. And okay, but he's still able to spin it, and people are clapping for him. It's like, okay. So of course we see this as it's going, as he's talking to the Genetic Council and the rest of the supporters. We see that Crystal's able to get to Lockjaw, freeze it shut, and wake him up enough to get teleported to Earth. It's like, okay. Let's see. Alright, then we get to the jail with Black Bolt. They get him into an exercise yard, pretty much trying to do the thing of getting payback because one of the cops that was injured by Black Bolt was the brother-in-law of one of the cops, and they're pretty much that old thing of trying to get the rest of the prisoners to kind of like rip on the new guy. But, of course, the rest of the prisoners have heard that he was in there for injuring a cop, and instead are like, oh, bring it in here. It's like, yeah, that wasn't thought all the way through. One even, like, bear hugs him up, and it's like, okay. And it's like, I don't know what you thought was really gonna happen. I mean, if it was a little infraction or something, or someone trying to, like, swagger in, the technique would have worked, and usually they would have just, like, hazed beat the crap out of the person, out of the new prisoner. But since the circumstances were that he had injured some police officers, and of course some of the inmates in there would be like, I'm okay with that, even though it's like a complete and utter misunderstanding. He's like, I didn't want to. Black Bolt would be like, I wasn't trying to injure these people. I was trying to you can see with his moves that he was trying to pretty much put it in a position that he did the least amount of injury as possible. What really is good with Anson Mount as Black Bolt is he can really convey that sense of control, of trying to control the power within himself, whether it be physical or his voice. And just seeing the police officers trying to do that is like, okay, maybe you could have thought this through a little bit better. You know what I mean? Because I understand that you're pissed off that your buddies were hurt. It could have been done better, I believe. And it was just like going along the usual kind of like prison kind of tropes. So, of course, they're doing that. The guards get pissed off and pretty much try and start a thing with Black Bolt, telling him to pick the stuff up and like the weights, and he does it. So they start trying to go for him, but of course, he doesn't take that kind of stuff. So it pretty much almost instantaneously starts a riot. And he's like pretty much taking down the guards with ease, and they like get smoke grenade, like tear gas by some of the other cops, but he's able to take most of them out. Sammy's able to kind of like lead him out as they're trying to escape. And of course he's like, we gotta get to the parking lot. We gotta get you to find your wife, and you can't do that from in here. You're gonna either disappear or be killed in here. And it's like, alright, we're here. Let me get us out of here. And he starts like using his powers of heat on the metal door, and he's like, yeah, I'm a freak like you. I almost burned down the house, could have killed my family, and that's how I lost them, like you. And of course, we get a flashback to Black Bolt learning about how having his powers and everything, how the Genetic Council was saying that they would never hear all of his son's voice again and all that. We see the mother kind of like hugging him and all that. And he's like, yeah, he is one of the most powerful Inhumans, that he could power to destroy all of Adelan on purpose or accident. And of course, they're like, listen, we gotta put him in something. He's like, no, he's my son. He can learn to control it. We'll be fine. So of course, we get Sammy melting the door to the point where it can fall off, and they pretty much go out and we see a helicopter come down, and it's their ride. It's got the doctor in it. It's like, alright, come with me. Comes in, we see Luis is looking at it, we see Medusa pull up, take out a guard, and get in, and she's like screaming at Black Bolt and like waving and everything. I'm like, he really wouldn't hear you because, one, he was already in the helicopter at that point and had the door shut. They were pretty much gone. She's like, crap. So of course, then Luis pulls up and is like, hey, what's going on here? And of course, then Medusa pulls the gun and is like, listen, you're gonna follow that helicopter. No, it's not an Earth gun, it's an Inhuman gun with the energy and everything. And it's like, okay, you're gonna follow that. Alrighty then. So of course they get in the car and start to follow. Then we see Crystal and Lockjaw on Earth, and Lockjaw pretty much goes back to sleep with how sedated he is. And then, since they're in the middle of the jungle, an ATV dude comes riding in and pretty much slams in Lockjaw and gets thrown. And that's where the episode ends. So, there's some good stuff with like Maximus and Black Bolt and Medusa. Other than that, it's like, okay, like, the cops surrounding the whole Black Bolt thing, I think could have been handled in a better manner. It were just kind of like typecast, to be honest with you, to the point to act in certain ways. They said the lines, but I didn't really feel anything from, like, yeah, the one cop's brother-in-law was injured, but it just felt more that it made sense for it to be that connected for plot reasons, rather than actually getting anything from them. It's like, okay, that could have been handled better. The Medusa ATM thing could have been handled better as well. And Karnak could be completely stripped from the episode and you would be missing nothing. Gorgon could have almost also been snipped except for his action scenes. I could almost really just have had this just been a Black Bolt and Medusa story with Maximus and the rest of them having the other characters that bounce off of to have something going on there. And it's just boring. It's like the whole stuff with Medusa, it's like, okay, the ATM thing was like, okay, that's boring. But her going into the house, that was a little bit more exciting. The whole Black Bolt and Cops thing, it's like, okay, this seems more boring that we have to get through this point to get to another point, rather than exciting. I just, like, could have been done better. Maximus' stuff, again, meat, substance with him, but most of the stuff is done in a way that is not exciting. Same with the flashbacks. It's just like, I feel that things are put in because there needs to be a story done in a certain way to get us to certain points. And we're just chugging along almost numbers by numbers, and there's no real depth. There is some depth there, but its execution is severely lacking. And it's the characters that have no depth or have no immediately apparent connection to anything going on, like Karnak and Gorgon. Even to an extent, Crystal, her only part added into it is that she is the only one that truly controls Lockjaw, the teleporting dog that can get on to and from the moon. So, I'm done reviewing this because I'm like, I really just prefer Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, granted, I had to ride that to get to one of the best seasons that they had last season. But see, that's the thing. I didn't overly hate it. At least you had characters that can, like, interact, and I was like, okay, I want to learn more about them. These characters, except for a couple of few, I don't care about. I don't like, I don't hate. Karnak, you can cut him and I'm like, I don't believe that there was a Karnak. And you would be like, okay, he didn't really add much interaction-wise. Gorgon, a little bit more, but okay. Black Bolt, Medusa, and Maximus, if it could have just been like done to those three, even just like having them, Contest of Will, and Adelan would have been better than whatever they're trying to juggle here. So, those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.